Hey everyone, welcome. Are we on?
Oh, Gab, thanks. Did you bring me a coffee? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gabby.
That poor dear,
Hi, guys.
that's the third cup of coffee she brought in for him. She's waiting to get it
That
online.
was planned.
Yeah, a little bit. So welcome to Barry McGuire's Creative Real Estate Education, where Wayne Hillier and I today, Monday main event, we've got a special investor spotlight for you. We're bringing in our tenant landlord resource, MacKenzie Wilson. Hi, MacKenzie.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hey Donna,
Hey,
Wayne,
it's
pleasure to be
MacKenzie.
here.
Look.
Guys, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled. This is it's quite an honor to be on this side of the show, and especially be on with you, Donna and Barry. You guys have done a lot for the community. I've been a student over the years, so it's nice to be able to get back to what you guys have done for everyone.
Well, thanks for that. But yeah, we're going to put you to the test. You guys, if you're joining us, please type your questions in. Say hi if you're here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
say hi and stuff.
Brian,
And
here.
so obviously we're going to be talking about like landlording, screening tenants, that kind of stuff. So if these are things that you're interested in and things you have questions about, which I know lots of people do, post your questions below. We will answer them. We'll try and get them along the way. If not, we'll catch them all at the end. And hopefully we can get some of that answered. But MacKenzie, how's it going, man?
Mr. Hiller, I'm doing quite well. How about yourself?
Good. We were just saying off air that I'm going to try and throw him some curveballs, try and make him seem silly on the internet.
Well, let me give you guys a piece. I think, Donna, since I gave you a lot of information to build up my bio and my profile picture, thank you for taking charge on that. You made a really good point about, those two certainties in life. You got death and taxes, and if we're in real estate, that's tenants. And that is so accurate. All these great investment strategies that we have, RTOs, agreement for sales, JV, and of course the bread and butter, the buy and hold. At the end of the day, they all relate to someone, a commodity. I don't want to call them quite a commodity, but a revenue generator, a tenant paying off bills on a product that you're supplying or a service. So if you're going to be in this game for any length of time, someone's got to manage that tenant without a doubt. And I don't know why it hasn't been spoken about as much in the past, but it's definitely a needed skill set. So that's how I kind of got in the picture, and why I'm fortunate enough to be with you guys today.
Yeah. And I've told you a couple times before, I think it's absolutely brilliant that you decided to start that group, the Alberta Landlord Community. For years, I've secretly hated every single landlord group on Facebook and everywhere else, because it was nothing but amateurs providing amateur non-verified information to people. And it was just horrible. People would be giving advice based on what they thought, and people will go and take that and apply it and get themselves into trouble or make a really bad situation for tenants. So the fact you guys started that group, the Alberta Landlord Community, like I love it. I love going in there, and you moderate it so well, and like kudos.
Awesome. It's a team effort for sure. It's a community base. So my partner, Chris Noble, retired our Royal Canadian RCMP officer of 25 years. Make sure I got my acronyms correct here. So he is really, we complement each other quite well. My background personally, I'm an IT guy and a business background. So it's a very good skill set, how we kind of come to moderate conversations. And every week we have a live show, or every time we hop on the page, we're still learning just as much as everybody else. It's an ever-changing industry. And when you take, it's a very challenging business as an entrepreneur, because you need a lot of money up front, large capital. It's scary, especially when you're new at this, putting $80,000 on the table, and then on to buy an asset, so your rental property. And then the other side, you're managing customer service and relationships, which is your tenant. And they're going to be very picky, as they should be, because you're providing a home, a place they call home that they want to be proud that they live in. Mm-hmm. So you've got these two opposite sides of the spectrum that you got to bring together in a cohesive fashion to provide a really good service to succeed as an entrepreneur in this side of the business. So I don't think you can quite have those challenges anywhere else. And is, yeah, I'm surprised we don't have this conversation sooner. It's something when I was getting in this game, I longed for, because I was just as scared as everybody else.
Mm-hmm. So where did the game start for you? Like where did this all start? Did you get into real estate investing and hop right into buy and hold? What did you start with? And when did you start?
Yeah, great question. So definitely buy and hold was for sure the strategy. This is a long-term game. And also it helped my wife and I get into our first home, because we knew we needed a mortgage helper. And so we looked at renting out our basement. And so that was really the start of it. And that would have been, we made an offer in December of 2015 and took possession mid-January 2016. And I have said this story before, and I'll make a quick note of it. I had a job at that time in the oil patch, and I spent between 10 to 12 hours behind a steering wheel. And I discovered this Tale of the Trenches podcast, and listened to a bunch of information. And there's this good tip that I kind of picked up, and I was like, I'll throw it on my offer on this property. And my wife and I were looking, she was pregnant at the time, which also was a big catalyst getting in here, because instead of my timeline of what am I going to do in the next 3 months, I actually started looking out more than a year, realizing the importance of planning ahead for future well-being or financial well-being. And Barry had a phenomenal tip called oh god, now it's leaving me here. Give me a second. It's subject to your lawyer's approval on your offer as a term. And sure enough, this first offer we put in got accepted. And then doing our due diligence, we found the property wasn't a good fit for where we wanted to have our family. And this property was going from October into November, and we were able to decline the offer within a 24-hour to 30-hour period on a late Sunday night. We gave the ability for that seller to have their house back on the MLS within Monday morning, so they didn't lose 7 or 8 days of critical selling time at a part when the selling season slowing down as we were going into November and Christmas break. So it was a win-win for everybody. And I did not incur personally the cost of doing a home inspection and then trying to weasel or make an excuse why I didn't want to go through as the conditional offer.
How many investors do you think got started out by listening to Tales from the Trenches?
Hundreds. I guarantee hundreds. Well, when the guy Barry has 45 years of practicing law, and I've only been alive for 36 years. There's got to be a bit of a falling out there. Hi, Facebook user. Go to Calgary. Love it. Yeah, it's so much good information. And one thing I've really always enjoyed with both Donna, you and Barry, I've been a student, so I've done a rapid cash flow program workshop, and I think that was back in 2018. And you guys have always made your part to impart the best wisdom that you guys know and the proper information to do the job properly, which is huge, of course, on the legal side of getting into this investing game. So, yeah.
Well, thanks. We try. We sincerely believe that a strong education, I mean, bringing in our focus team, Wayne, Andrea, Neil, bringing in a rent-to-own specialist Neil and Rachel Oliver on Thursday. You'll want to tune in for that one too. Sure. The power of the focus team really supports Barry and Barry's extensive knowledge. It's just great.
It's like
peanut
butter and
jelly.
Jam, whatever. Barry's jam, whatever. I was trying to make a joke. So your first one was a mortgage helper, your first tenant. Yep. So I'm assuming you didn't start with property management. Did you get property management afterwards, or have you ever used property management?
No, I haven't. So my belief getting in this game and really most facets of the business, you have to have some level of experience in it. And so I wanted to experience it firsthand. So the day I do decide to outsource it, I have a very strong understanding of what I should be expecting from that service provider, being the property management company, and I can hold them accountable because I could set expectations up front clearly because I know what they are. Whereas if I had never property managed before, it'd be very difficult to do that. And that gets you into an ambiguous kind of gray area, or maybe worst case scenario, you might get taken advantage of.
That's kind of where I was leading, because I agree. I think it's extremely important to get your feet wet first and to experience those things in order to know that you're not going to be getting taken advantage of, and secondly, to make sure that you know how to manage a manager. Now, what kind of things, you haven't used property management yet, but in the future, what kind of things are you going to look for from a property manager to ensure they're doing things correctly?
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's take one step back. And if anyone's looking to get in this game, or they're just starting out right now, and you're in the buying phase, budget with the cost of property management in mind, whether you're doing it or not. Because if you know you're not going to do it, but at some point you realize it's like pulling teeth, it's not a fun or pleasurable experience, which is probably why no one ever talks about property management.
Yeah.
And, we're like the black sheep in the room. It's needed for every investment, like I mentioned before, but no one wants to really talk about it.
And you know what? It's kind of funny, because isn't that what every non-investor thinks investing is? It's funny that everyone just assumes it's all about property management until you become into property, investing, and then nobody wants to talk about it. Isn't that kind of weird?
It's not sexy, right? We don't do these cool AFS or these RTOs over here. We're just, this tenant is destroying your house right now. You better start doing these 5 things to get your property back in order. Doesn't sound as cool, but when Barry says it, it sounds super cool.
Yeah. Sorry, I took you off track there, but it's you were talking about property management and things to know and be prepared for.
Totally. So segueing back is make sure you start off if you're looking at buying, your cash flow includes the cost of property management. Ballpark right now, 10%, easy figure to work with, because at some point you may not want to be spending your time doing that. And if you don't appropriately budget for that item, you may be chained to doing that task and you be getting quite miserable and become burnt out. And then you want to get out of this game and you're not going to be in it for the long-term success. Tips for the property management. I'd ask them what their screening process is. Whether there are contact points with the tenant, how do they engage the tenant, the type of inspections they do, when they do their inspections, what do they do if they come up with a problem, repair costs, how repairs handled, do they get 3 quotes perhaps for repairs? Do they have their own in-house or a trades list that they call off of? Because again, property manager, it's about keeping your costs down. So if they're not appropriately managing repairs, that's going to eat away at your bottom line.
Mm-hmm. What about hidden fees with property managers? I mean, have you looked into it? Because obviously it's not just a simple percentage of the rent, as everyone assumes that it is. Nice cut, by the way. Normally they have a lot of hidden fees in there as well for, renewals, for finding new tenants. If any paperwork needs to be submitted for, RTDRS or something like that, fees and fees and fees and fees. So what can people kind of expect from that?
Totally. Yeah. So no, good question. So typically there's a flat monthly fee, and then anything that requires time and legwork is additional costs. So that would be your home inspections, tenant placement's a big one, move-in inspections, annual or semi-annually quarter inspections. So if they do it every 3 to 4 months, 6 months, whatever that might be. And of course, the whole eviction process is all a la carte. It's all pay as you go.
Mm-hmm.
So you just be aware of those costs, and going back to, you want to make your property easy to manage if you don't want to do it. So it's not like pulling teeth for your property manager to get things done for you. So maybe another question to ask them: what can I do to make your job easier so my property is always looked after? It's not vacant and all that good stuff. So that comes back to, if you're going to give a product over or property over to the property management company, it's got to be ready. It's got to be showroom ready. And this kind of goes back to my tenant screen masterclass. Is I used to say the filtering starts with the ad, but in fact, it starts with a really good product. If you're not taking the time to maintain the product, do your appropriate repairs, keep it painted, keep it looking like you want to live there, or you'd let a family member live there. If your property is not up to that level, you can do all the most amazing marketing ever and make it look really beautiful. But as soon as they walk in the door in the view, and they're going to be, thank you, I got to go now. And they're not, it's just a big disconnect in the process. So you want consistency right from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Donna, what about yourself? I mean, if you don't mind me asking, Donna, what was your experience? Have you always had property managers, or have you managed your own rental property?
I have a mix of both of those. So I own property outside of Edmonton as well. So I have managers for those. I manage some inside the city, and then some I've inherited with property managers that I just let them continue with.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, I don't like managing properties. Tenants and toilets, right? So I understand the importance, MacKenzie, of understanding and being able to hold anybody accountable for whatever you're depending on them for. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of it.
I think it's just the inconsistencies of it, the random emails that just throw you right off track. You can stay so focused on a task or a goal, and then just some email comes in and just completely takes you off course. Do you ever get that, MacKenzie?
Oh yeah, I mean, because again, my property manager, it's like my after hours side hustle, if you will, my thing on the side. So I mean, I've got a day job. I'm at TELUS right now, so that's my main focus, family and kids. So the worst thing you want to get is that Friday night 7:00 call on the long weekend, and the tenant has no electricity, or the heat's out, or whatever it might be, right? And it typically comes at that time for whatever reason. But yeah, and and I was thinking more as you guys were chatting there. Probably the biggest thing is setting the expectation around communication. Communication solves all problems. If everyone's on the same page and there's timely communication, and you have a relationship with your property manager that you're willing to work with them, you guys will get through anything. But if that's not there, or things get left for months on time, that's where you can get the problem tenants, or you can get perhaps the property manager that hasn't been as attentive as they should be, and now you've got rent in arrear, perhaps damages and other breaches of lease on your rental.
Yeah, for sure. Earlier you had mentioned you should always make sure you have enough cash flow to ensure, or you should plan ahead of time in case you do eventually get property management. What about for landlords who are accidental landlords? Maybe, they had a home, they tried to sell it, they couldn't sell it, and they got into accidental landlordship. What about for them? Like what would you recommend for them to making sure that they're doing things properly and setting up good systems?
Yeah, totally. So
they can't afford a property manager unless they pay out of pocket, right?
Yeah. So let's say they're accidental. Here we are. They can't afford for the property manager. So what's the best case to do in that scenario? And everything's about knowledge and education. Get informed. There's lots of free resources out there. Cough, cough. I know a Facebook group, and you need to know, because what would be the saying? Well, basically, if you don't know what's going on, someone does, they'll take advantage of you. And unfortunately, professional tenants will specifically target unsuspecting landlords, because even the way they post the rental ad, you can read through the nuances if this person's organized and they have systems, or if they're kind of going by the seat of their pants.
Yeah, it's like I've never had any of those bad, professional tenants. And yeah, you do tend to see, the lesser experienced ones being suckered into it. Mm-hmm. And it's typically some tenant that says, I've got cash right now, I'm going to take this problem off your hand, I want to move in today. And they're like, oh, wow, I only posted for a day and I got $200 over market rents, and they had cash in hand. And people fall victim to that. And that's why I asked, because, a lot of accidental landlords, they're good people. They, just something happened, they decided I got to rent this out instead, and then they fall victim. So Alberta Landlord Community, obviously, you coughed, but again, tremendous resource.
Yeah, I think probably something that we've done really well that makes us a little bit different than the other landlord groups on the internet or on Facebook is, so my partner Chris, he's the one that started it and got it off the ground. Being a retired police officer, he's been very diligent who he's let in the group up front. So we're very much a private community. We're landlords only, landlords helping landlords, and we've been able to create a really good culture, or a safe place for people to be like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. What should I do next? I have this tenant and this is my problem. I'm not getting any views. How come no one's looking at my rental ad? What can I do? And we typically within an hour we'll get a half dozen responses, and it's a very engaged community, which gives a lot of confidence when it's a pretty scary business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk some more about the ads then, MacKenzie, because I was going to ask about avoiding these professional tenants. If they can see in the ad or get the sense that someone may not be as systemized and efficient and maybe as diligent as they should be. Well, let's start with the ad, and maybe you could walk us through the procedure that you would follow through.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. So let's start with the ad. So the ad should serve you two purposes. The more common one that everyone knows about is it gets your message out. Hey, I need to find someone. I'm looking for a rental. You're trying to get a bunch of leads come in. On the same side, that ad will also either bring you a bunch of unqualified tenants if you're not putting the proper information on that ad. So it should actually serve you twofold. The second main purpose is less common. It's a filter. You don't want 40 people calling you when they all don't qualify and they can't afford your property. You want, when the phone calls come in, to be qualified or nearly qualified. So you only have to ask a few questions and then you're already moving on to the next step of booking the viewing. So some quick pro tips on what you should include in your ad. One, you should do it, but whether you do it or not, you use background and credit checks. There's a new service right now, well, relatively new. They've been around about about a year, but more recently, they started last year on their own. They're called Landlord Credit Bureau. They give you the ability as small mom and pop landlords to, one, report bad behavior to the credit bureau, so Equifax, and you can do that in two fashions. Reactively, if you're in the hole and you have to go after unpaid rents or damages, but as a pre-screening technique, you can actually proactively report every monthly payment habit to Equifax. So you are given the ability as a landlord to help your tenant build their credit score on their biggest monthly payment, which is their rent. So not a lot of people do that. And by putting that into your ad, you are saying, hey, I work with this credit reporting agency. I'm going to report you to Equifax. I'm going to help you grow. And on the same flip side, any tenant or any professional tenant with ill intent or malicious behavior is going to be like, I'm not touching you. You're going to affect my credit score. Like that, you already had these systems in place, and it screams that right on your ad. Professional photos, it means so much when people go and look at it. If you guys have looked at your own, if you've ever gone house shopping, or if you've gone on an Airbnb, what's the first thing you're doing? You're reading the text description and looking on the details and how they manage everything. Or are you going through all the pictures and be like, I want that master bedroom for my vacation, or I want to go live here because I can go walk to that awesome park across the street for my dog. Like whatever that emotional drive is, we're visual people. We've got lots of room now on the internet with ads. There's no restrictions. Get great pictures, and on top of that, you want someone, pay a little bit of money. You want someone who can give you who's actually good at doing real estate specific photos, because they'll have wide lenses that can make the rooms look big and full as they are, as opposed to your cell phone taking 50% of the room on the one side, and they angle everything just right. So what else can I say? Another quick pro tip, I'll finish one more for you. I'll give it back to you. Is you should have your own name, phone number, or if you have a property management company name for doing your business or your rentals, those should be embedded in the actual photos, because it presents fraud. Where I know when we had you guys probably know Samuel
Lee.
Thank
Sam
you.
Lee,
Yeah, Sam Lee. When we were chatting, he came a couple times on our show. He had people take his pictures and made a fake ad, and then was soliciting to get a damage deposit remotely from somebody who was like an unknown tenant. So they didn't know that his ads were being used to scam people. So when your information is embedded in the photo, it takes too much effort for a scam artist to use your ad. They'll go on to somebody else.
Some crazy people out there.
So is that like a watermark?
Like a watermark. Exactly that. Yeah. So you can just in almost, Photoshop, or not Photoshop, but like Paint or any simple photo editing program, throw some text on top of the photo, but don't just put it down in the corner, because someone could just crop it out. So you want to embed it somewhere in the photo. I usually do like a plain wall where it shows up nicely, and just put your email or if you've got a company or whatever, and then it makes it very difficult to repurpose the photos for a scam.
That's a pro tip right there, right? Write that one down. I never considered it. Never thought it would be a problem, but I mean, now that I think about it, I mean, two of the biggest scams on marketplaces is deposits for rentals, and also dog deposits. You know, taking deposits for animals and stuff like that, pets.
Totally.
So yeah, I mean,
so let's pivot and go one step further. We're in this post-COVID world. In-person viewings are even less common now. In fact, a lot of us gone to some form of virtual viewings. So on all my ads now, I've just started doing it. I've got virtual tours, which is a really nice walkthrough, continuous video shot of going through the whole property. So it gives somebody the comfort of what the property looks like. If you are, say, you've got someone coming out from out east, out from Ontario or something, they're coming to move here, they can't be here in person. You can definitely, with all the technology we have nowadays, still build that confidence that you're not an online scam by standing in front of the property, spinning up a video call, whether it's FaceTime, Google Duo, wherever you're doing your video call from. Walk them through the property so they see the same. They see the outside of the house in the photo, and now they're seeing it on the same video call. You've got access with keys going in the property. You're showcasing the property, all that kind of stuff. All those additional nuances of seeing that information build that confidence if someone can't be there in person with you. So there's still definitely ways to even screen tenants remotely and have someone sign a lease and get a damage deposit without ever seeing them.
What are you finding percentage-wise of tenants? Are they still wanting to view in person, or are they wanting virtual?
100%. Definitely still wanting to do it in person if they're local. But they're definitely more willing now to do the video calls and whereas maybe before that might have felt a little bit awkward saying, hey, do you want to snip a FaceTime call with me? I'll talk to you on Saturday and we can go through the property. Now it's like, it's so COVID's made it commonplace and it's normalized using Zoom calls and all that. And I mean, here we are right now, right? So that's the nice thing. And I expect that will stick around is it's gotten people familiar, at least a large portion of the population familiar with using technology in their day-to-day lives and especially with property management.
MacKenzie, on your ads, do you use your own phone number, your own email? How do you do that?
For sure. So when I can get an assistant, as Hiller has one, I'm quite jealous, but at that point right now, still to me today, it's my own phone number. And then I have I created a specific email just for managing my rental properties. So that's what's on my ads. So were you looking for something with that or just curious on how I manage it?
Just curious. There's been some conversations about using dedicated phones and that kind of thing. So just as a level of separation, I was just wondering.
If you're big enough, I would look at getting a virtual phone number. So it'd be like a VoIP phone number that you can spin up an app. So every time you got a phone call coming in, you knew that's specific to do with rental properties. So, and here, I'll go back to that in a second. Now I'm just going to pivot here. On top of that, just so you can answer your questions appropriately, I typically only take, I'm doing a vacancy right now because I'm letting my tenant break their lease, but I try to hopefully only do this a couple times a year. So I don't, even myself, as long as I've been doing it, I don't always remember all my questions. So I've got these plastic little business cards with all my questions on there, and I have them. Yeah, you don't need to read it.
Sorry, we're just copying it.
Yeah. Well, it's on our group. Come by and grab it. It's all the questions I ask. But I have these questions, these little cue cards wherever I am, because I always find when I get a phone call for a property, it's not like I'm sitting right now in front of the computer with a pen and paper and ready to go. It's like I'm driving out to BC for the weekend on a Friday afternoon, or I'm at the Flames game. I don't know. It seems to be always inconvenient. So I've got these cue cards to answer the questions anywhere. I leave them in my car, by the phone. My wife's purse has one. And I don't always remember to ask all the questions because ideally, the whole tenant screening process, it comes down to, it's a two-part process. It's about collecting information. It's also about collecting that same information multiple times so you can build a timeline and ensure that every time you collect that same piece of information, it's being told to you in the same way. If you're seeing that same piece of information grow or change over time, they might be lying there, fabricating the story, and chances anyone able to keep a lie straight for 2 to 3 weeks or over 4 or 5 days when you talk to them 3 or 4 times is more and more difficult. And most people don't track that stuff. So that's another way to kind of seep through the truth and false information out there. But at the end of the day, you're collecting all these different data points, and then you're trying to see, one, are they telling me the truth? And then number 2, do they meet my qualifications for the property?
Do you have any tips for that? Any ways, any expert ways that you catch someone in a lie?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and I'm going to pivot back. I'll answer that question in a second. But so going back to that phone line question that Donna was asking about, if you're big enough, I mean, it's probably going to run you. I was using it for a bit, and I just didn't think it was worth the cost. I think at that time I was paying between $15 and $20 a month. But the reason why I wanted a separate phone line is I actually wanted to have the calls automatically recorded, so I didn't have to take notes, and I could answer the call again on the fly, go through my question, have a very natural conversation, and then review my recorded call conversation later to take the notes down to stay on for my own records. So you can do that on incoming calls, and you just have to have if you use the phone service, most of them will give you an automated message telling the incoming call, hey, by the way, this phone call, for your privacy, this phone call is recorded and used for, whatever, quality insurance. But there has to be consent given at the beginning of the phone call to do a recording of a phone call. So that was one thought there. And I lost my train of thought. What was your question?
I have 2 questions. One, I'll go back to the other one in a second. It was in regards to trying to catch people in lies. But while we're on the phone thing, because I wanted to pivot back in this direction, was that do you actually like that? Do you like people calling you? Because in my experience, and I'm sure you've had it as well, where you get that really, really, really pushy tenant or prospect that really wants your place but can't seem to figure out why you said no. You know what I mean? Where you go through all of it, everything seems great, then you do your checks and you're like, whoa, red flag, like stage 5, stay away from this person. And then you let them down nicely, however you do it. But then they just keep calling you and texting you. Normally, I get that experience through email. I can't imagine what it would be like for them to continuously text and call me.
So I don't ever really say no to tenants. I just throw a lot of process at them if I am not interested. So I've got, so yes, and so you've asked me a couple of questions. So if to your first point, do I like taking phone calls? Yes, I do, because I like to, having face-to-face is the best communication because you can see all the subliminal messaging. You can't have that, then video call, and then phone calls, then written communication and so forth. It gets less and less personal. So the more personal I can get, the better gauge I can take and use my gut if I'm going to like this person on top of the information or the questions I'm asking them. Nowadays, my time is I have less and less time, I guess, to put it frankly. So I've gone through, and I'm kind of trialing this right now. Is I've got an online form with all my questions, and I'm actually making tenants fill those out before I even take my screening call. So then my screening call is one quicker. I still ask some. I repeat the same questions again because again, I want to know that what they've written over here aligns with what they're telling me. And then when I go see them in person, I'll ask those same questions. So on the viewing side too, I know I'm all over the place here. The viewing, first part of the viewing is your interview of that person to make sure they meet their standards. You're re-asking all your due diligence, your screening questions, ensuring that there's consistency in the answers again. And then on the last half of that viewing, you switch gears to kind of selling and closing and talking about the features, gauging why they're looking at your property. Like, what's their number one thing? Are they a growing family and they're pregnant and they have their first child? They need a bigger room. They love the cook, and that last place had a really small, tiny kitchen. Therefore, you should focus a lot of your conversation in that kitchen and showcase it. And then when you're wrapping up that conversation, if you're going to pick somewhere to stand in the house, stand inside that kitchen. The best feature is applicable to that tenant, and close them there and talk about all your systems and procedures, what makes you a great landlord. And that's where you can go back to, here's how I manage utilities. It's kept in my name, so there's no cancellations. That's been a problem in the past. I do a separate agreement. It's all one flat monthly budget, so it's easy for you to manage your expenses. I do this, that. If you want to rent out the garage, that's an option too. Here's the next steps in my screening process. When are you looking to make your move? When do you want to decide where you're going to rent? Oh, you're going to decide by this Friday? Okay, perfect. If I don't hear from you, then I'll reach out to you by Friday and see where you're at.
Write this stuff down.
So-
Whoever's listening, write this stuff down. This is valuable stuff.
Yeah,
Pretty much full process of like from start to finish and how you're doing it. I mean, I'm making a note myself.
I'm a little over the place, but definitely there's tidbits everywhere. I mean, I don't offer leases or applications. Sorry, I don't offer my application during the viewing. I wait for them to ask, because we're all Canadian. We're all going to politely accept an application, but if we're not interested, we're not going to fill it out. And I want to know if I'm giving out an application that they're generally interested. So if they're asking me, okay, great, love your property, we went through all my requirements, what's next? How does your application process work? Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Tenant, for asking. Here's what I do. I do all my stuff online. All I need is a full name and an email, and you'll get the application tonight by email, and it takes about 15 minutes to fill out.
I do it slightly different just to find out if they're actually serious about it. Because a lot of, like you said, they're all polite and like, oh, this is really nice. Yeah, I'm going to think about it. And I'll ask them point blank, do you like the place? Yeah. Okay. And I'll pull out the drawer and I'll grab a piece of paper and a pen. I'll hand them the pen and be like, okay, would you like to fill out an application? And if they say yes, right then and there, then I know they're serious about it. If they say, I'm going to take it home, I don't put any more energy into them. Because if they really wanted it, they'd fill it out right then and there, right?
Yeah.
That's how I gauge the seriousness of a potential tenant.
That's exactly it. So, same result, different process, right?
Yeah.
I want them to inquire to me about, okay, I love it. And I just sit there and I don't say anything. They're putting on their shoes like, okay, so what's next? You're going to offer me an application? I'm interested. And I go, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Then I go into my application process. But I don't go and be like, here's my application, Mr. Tenant or Mrs. Tenant, because then they're like, oh, thanks. And I have no idea if they're actually interested or not.
Mm-hmm.
And segueing, a better way to get more applications back is I do something called tea time bookings. Is I book my viewings back to back to back.
Yeah.
So usually when one set of tenants are coming in, I have another set of tenants leaving. They see each other, or even if a tenant's taking a little bit longer, they're sitting in the car outside waiting for their turn to come in my property. So when they come in, they do the whole thing. They go, oh, have you had any interest? And instead of me being like, yeah, I've had 100 people and it's just my word, they're like, yeah. Sure. Well, no, they just saw 4 tenants walk out the door. And all of a sudden, if they were on the fence of giving me an application, I just got that application back that night, because there's that peer pressure and third-party validation.
Yeah.
How long do you book, MacKenzie, for your viewings?
Good question. And I've talked about this too. So my rule of thumb from my personal experience, the longer or more advanced or further out that viewing is booked, the less likely that tenant will show up. I really try to keep it within 24 hours to 3 days. I think that's kind of the sweet spot. I find, especially next day or next 2 days, you get majority of the people showing up. But if you start going 2 weeks out or 10 days out, it's people. The really organized tenants will shop a month and a half out. The tenants that get into a predicament will start shopping, maybe 2 weeks out before they have to go buy a place. But they got to make a decision. Typically, people are looking to buy a new place or move into or look for a rental because the place they're currently living in is unavailable at the end of the month. They've got to make a quick decision. So if you're booking a week or 10 days out and they're freaking out because they've got only 2 more weekends before they have to move, they're going to find another place too quickly. They're not going to respond. It's got to be within a short time frame, generally speaking.
This is actually a question that I was going to ask. This is from Kathleen Taylor, and she asked, "How do you prevent missed showings in those tea time visits?"
Awesome. So I'll go back to my little cue card. I've got my bolded question on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. Bolded. No, can't even see it all. That's good. I got these bubble glasses. I can't remember that guy. What's that guy from Trailer Park Boys?
Bubbles.
Oh, yeah. How I feel. They're a great price off clearly.ca, but I didn't pay anything for the lenses. They're like the cheapest bare bones. And
yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're over a half inch thick when I look them at the sideways. But anyways, regardless. So to Kathleen's question, Kathleen there. I do a bit of a psychology test on my last question. So let's say we're on the phone right now. I go, great, Wayne, thanks for calling. Yeah, you bet. So all that information is confirmed. I'm going to see you tomorrow night at 7:00. Here's all the information. One last thing, though, Wayne, before you hang up, I do need you to send me a text about an hour and a half before the viewing. If I don't get that text to confirm the appointment, I consider the appointment canceled and I don't show up. I understand life happens. Are you okay with that? You go, yeah, okay. And I've never had a tenant push back, and I've done this hundreds of times. And what I do is I wait for that text. And if I get that text at 5:30 to confirm the appointment at 7 o'clock, then I'm getting ready to go out to that viewing. If they don't send me that text, I don't leave. I've got better time. I got better things to do with my time. I've got my kids upstairs. Perhaps we'll go out to the park. I absolutely hate wasting time. And I was fortunate enough to pick up this tip pretty early on that I avoided a lot of no-shows. I definitely have been to those, but if you get them to confirm the appointment an hour and a half before, the chance of them arriving is way, way better. So.
It's good stuff, man. We do have a couple other questions. Oh, but you have something else to say.
And I'm going to add on that. The reason why I do that is also I use this as a psychology test. You're training your tenant to follow a process. So if they can, especially when they're trying to please you or be picked on the screen process, they're going to want to follow these steps. And if they can't follow some very simple steps of saying, hey, send me a text tomorrow an hour and a half before you show up, they can't follow something as simple as that. That may foreshadow how easy or difficult they may be to work with when you're trying to plan a plumber or repairs in your property. You want to know that they're able to communicate and can follow simple set of instructions.
Ooh, I'm going to go in a different direction now because I just thought about something that I put a lot of thought into, and that's the psychology of the tenant. Since we're on it, I like a certain type of tenant, and the reason why I like a certain type of tenant is because I like to maintain control. I don't want to be a big authority where the tenant is supposed to be afraid of me. However, when I email my tenants something, I don't like the type of tenant that talks back rudely and saying, oh, I don't have to do something like that, because if you're dealing with someone like that, you're going to have a lot of trouble throughout those 12 months of your lease. So do you have any tips for maintaining, I don't like saying it in these words, but maintaining that level of authority that you are the owner, you are the one who has the rules and they are to follow them and you're supposed to, do you have any tips for that?
Yeah. I would probably rephrase it more. It's your ship. You want to guide the direction, but you're in a partnership with this, or in a relationship with this tenant to make this work. So I was going to go that. Yeah. So that, I want to get, like, it is kind of like dating. I want to pick a tenant that is willing to work with me, that's going to let me know if there's problems so I can fix them before they turn into costly repairs. They don't have problems when they come by to check on the property to keep things up to date. And generally, people are like, oh, that interferes with my tenant's privacy, this and that. To be honest, if you're an attentive landlord and you're making sure they have a great quality place to call home, they're going to be thrilled you're coming by every 4 months to change out furnace filters, to check the toilets for leaks, to ensure the property's in really good working order. I'm very cognizant of how they communicate with me. Do they try to negotiate with you on your tenant screening process? So you've done a viewing, or they're on their first phone call and they say, oh, hey, MacKenzie, I see that you have your garage available for rent. And I say, yeah, you're right. I usually rent it to the market for $200, but if you're going to rent the place and save me some trouble, I'll give you a discount. I'll go up for $130. And then he comes back to me and says, oh, you know what? Would you do $60? If he's trying to lowball me on my own property and tell me and trying to control my variables and how I run it, I'm not going to bother with them, because that's going to be like every step of the process.
100%.
Or he's going to sign in. And especially if you're doing a promotion. So here's another pro tip. So let's say right now we're in winter. It's a tough time to rent this time of year. Let's say you're offering an incentive, a 1 month free rent. Don't give them to them on the very first month. Put that on month 6 or 12, depending on what the term of your lease is. So they are motivated to stick through the duration of the lease. If you give all the freebies up front and they get everything, and then they're a little bit flaky and then life happens, they're just going to dump you and get out of there. They've already got the freebies, and all of a sudden, you had 2 months of rent come in. You're supposed to have a 12-month lease, and they had the first month free, and they're gone. And now you're redoing the whole process, and you're dealing with that headache again.
That's good stuff. We do have some more questions here. Donna, do you have anything else you want to?
Which is weird.
I mean, how do you maintain your authority, Donna, with your management?
Have you just met me? I mean, I'm very good at setting out expectations.
Yeah.
And I have a little voice, and I'm 5 feet tall, so I can play that I'm being bossy, but it's pretty. I mean, you guys, you're gonna have to shovel your own walks. Got it? You good with that? Okay. Like, don't call me because this actually happened. I got a call. A woman snowed overnight, 6 a.m. She's going to work, and there's snow on the sidewalk, and it's like, no, 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 no. There's also a shovel and a broom and sand. Like, grow up.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of babysitting, so I do say that straight out. I'm not a babysitter, so there is some responsibility that comes with renting.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if people push back on a property as like, let's say you're renting out a house and there's lawn and snow care removal, be like, you're renting a house. Therefore, the expectation is you look after a house, you cut the grass, you shovel the lawn, the sidewalk. If you don't want those responsibilities, you should be looking at a different product then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had an email come in today about a loose toilet seat. They want us to send someone out to tighten a loose toilet seat.
So my take on this, and going back to common problems I've seen, every once in a while we'll get a frustrated landlord on a page where they've been grilled to death from a very picky tenant. There's come out to fix my loose toilet seat, right?
Yeah.
Things that don't really affect the safety or quality of the rental product, but they're getting grinded hundreds of dollars, $100 here, $100 there to do this. And again, Donna made a very good example, and she highlighted what you need to do is set those expectations. And if you've unfortunately set precedents where this has been ongoing for 6 months and you're now in this situation, it's okay. You can reset from here and say, going forward, I've been very accommodating. Here's a list of things we've done to date. Going forward, if these items that you're requesting do not relate to the safety or the quality or the needs of the rental, what I'm trying to say here, like they don't affect your quality or safety of life to pertain to have this house function or over your head, then they're not going to be looked after. If you want to do these certain things, you're more than welcome to pay out of pocket to meet your needs. But I'm going to ensure the heat's on for you, the house is clean and safe, and you've got proper smoke detectors, all that stuff that you need to be comfortable and call that place your home. If you're not happy with that expectation going forward, that's fine. Perhaps I'm happy to end this lease and you can go elsewhere to look for your new rental. Two things will happen. That tenant will go, okay, kind of understand what the new bar is, politely shut up and continue on and work with you, or they're gonna go the opposite way and they're gonna head somewhere else because they think they can get a better deal elsewhere. Perfect. You just got rid of a really problem tenant over here. Do a little bit more due diligence on your screen for the next tenant, and you'll be a lot better.
Sean Emby says one of the tenants didn't know how to change a light bulb. They thought the fixture was broken. True story.
I had a fellow that he knew that it was just the light bulb, but he called me. So one of the lights is out. It's like,
come change the bulb. Yeah, and that what really bothers me the most about that is the fact that that's my time. And even though, I've got property management or maybe, whoever has property management, you're not going to hire a handyman to go out there and change a bulb, right? Because that's going to cost you a minimum hour. You're looking at like $60 probably for someone to go out and change a bulb.
Oh, probably $100 so they're going to drive out to site.
Absolutely. So what ends up happening is, do I pay $100 or do I go take an hour of my time to go drive down and replace a light bulb? And that's the most frustrating thing. So I like what Donna said, and that, setting those expectations is huge. So that you're not being taken advantage of.
My only exception to that is if it's a light bulb that's, 15 feet up on it because you've got a really high ceiling.
Stairwell, yeah, for sure.
And you don't want your tenant going out there and doing something silly and getting injured. So that there is a light bulb exception. I just do want to throw that one out there. But to get around dealing with these kind of silly requests from tenants is when you do your move-in inspection or on your viewing, this is where you're setting your expectations. What a lot of landlords have done, I've seen suggested on the page, which I think is brilliant, is they go and have a parts cost or a repair price list. If this breaks down and it's your fault, you get charged this amount. If the oven is dirty on your move out, I'm charging you a minimum $200 worth of cleaning, this and that. They can all of a sudden they see a tangible cost to their complaint, and now they're going to think twice whether they're going to bug you to charge the $60 to get the handyman to do that small task, either that, especially if they can do it themselves. On the other side, with rentals, if you've got a lifelong tenant that's never really owned a property, all of these things we're talking about are life skills you get when you buy your first property. But a lot of tenants don't ever go down that part of that path, that they go in a different direction. They need to be shown and taught this. So things you may take for granted because you've owned your own house isn't actually common information. So on my move-in inspection, I'm showing people how to turn off the water to the toilet, where the water shut off is in the utility room, how to flip a breaker, all these things that people will, if they've never owned a property, they've actually never dealt with this before.
That's a great point. Great point.
And actually, I remember I had a landlord years ago that was actually, in hindsight, looking back, he was a terrific landlord. He did such an amazing job. But I remember one particular night, Gabby and I went to the fridge, and the fridge wasn't working. And so first thing you do is you call him up saying, hey, the fridge isn't working. And what he said is, if you remember when we did the walkthrough, all the manuals are above the fridge in the cabinet. Go pull the manual out for the fridge, have a look in there in the troubleshooting first, see if you can figure it out. Alternatively, next, go to YouTube, see if you can figure out the solution. And then if we still can't, then I will call a handyman out. What did I do? I went through the manual. Within 5 minutes, I figured out you just had to vacuum the vent at the bottom. Suddenly everything works. And I called him back up and I said, thank you so much. I figured it all out. And he goes, okay, thanks. And I have implemented that now as a landlord myself, where I always leave the manuals there and tell them to read the manuals. If they don't have it, then I will send them a link for the manual for them to read. Secondly, go to YouTube, or maybe sometimes I'll find a YouTube video and say, try this, get them to try it. And then if it's completely exhausted all possible ways that they can fix it, then I will hire a handyman.
It's a brilliant outsource of following a little bit of process to mitigate cost and time and save those money for you. I was going to riff on what you were saying there, Wayne. I can't remember.
I'll continue on. Alternatively, if we do find out it was something that they could have fixed or that something that they could have taken care of easily, then we do charge it back to them because they were supposed to try, right? And that's what we let them know. If it comes back that this is something that was simple that you could have prevented or something that you could have fixed easily, like tightening a toilet seat screw, then of course we're going to charge that back to you. And they normally, I haven't had any resistance yet.
That's exactly where I was going to go with it is I can go and call this trade or whatever, but if it's deemed fixable or if it's deemed your responsibility, i.e. your kid flushed that dinky card down the toilet, you will be billed. So just please keep that in mind. And
right.
And I say, if it's in the middle of the night, it's 4 a.m. and you're going to call me because you've got no heat. Your first call should be, follow those steps, but your next call should be call my list of preferred trades and have it fixed. I am not going to be able to help you at 2 a.m. I'm not technically inclined in that area, but call me at 8 a.m. and let me know what's going on. I don't need to be woken up. But at the same time, again, if it comes back to if it's something that you could have taken care of yourself, that cost will be pushed back towards you. And then they're a little more diligent on their troubleshooting and careful before they make that phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are your good thoughts on smart locks?
I love them. I have a whole lock system. Do you want me to get into that?
I wanted to. It's one of my things on my list that I just keep thinking about doing.
Okay. So I use a brand called Shalage Connect. Shalage is the brand. They're all keyless. They're really good locks. I've really quite enjoyed them. I had a future idea. The reason why I went with this specific model, because I was going to eventually add home automation into my properties to help the tenants out as a selling feature. Too expensive, haven't gone down that road yet. But all these locks, especially the new ones nowadays, typically allow you to do a couple things. One, you can program multiple combinations. So in my suite of properties where it's an up-down duplex and the tenants have a common door and then it goes into each of their own units, they each have their own private code. So that one door will accept the code for the upstairs tenant and will accept the downstairs tenant's unique code as well. So they're not sharing passwords.
Right.
Number two, I've pre-programmed, I think I got about 4 to 5 codes per door in each property, pre-programmed with some dummy codes. So if I'm out and about and I can't get there to whatever, I can still get I can go get a trade out there to the furnace guy. I'm not giving away any of my tenants' confidential codes. I'm burning a one-time temporary code. The next time I come up to the property, I delete it off, put another dummy code in. It protects the codes for the tenants, and you can still get things done on the fly without having to drive up to the site. And I also have, most of these new locks give you a unique code for programming. You can actually change that programming code. So all of my properties all have the same brand keyless lock, and it's a deadbolt, and I have the same programming code. So when I'm switching over tenants, I am deleting the old code and adding the new code within about 5 minutes. It's super seamless. It's super easy. I don't give out keys to my tenants, so they never lose keys. Now, granted, most of my properties, or half of them, have a front and back door that both have a keyless lock. So the chances of the batteries dying on both locks at the same time is very low. And I say, by the way, it's now I give you guys a fresh set of batteries to start with. For the rest of your tenancy, it's on your responsibility to change over and put new batteries in. I've only been called once, and then the other tenant let her in, and then through the other door, or she got in through the other door, and she replaced the batteries in the front door because that was only for the upstairs unit. Where was I going with that? Oh, and these locks work really good outside. We've been down minus 35 a couple of winters ago, and it was really cold, and my locks still worked. The only caveat to people out there who have complained where they don't work is these locks have two sets of components, right? You've got the mechanics on the front and electronics on the back.
That was the best part too.
Oh, the suspense.
Oh no, am I back?
We lost you.
What are we talking about? How the lock
The
works?
You were like this.
And the
You stopped like this.
something on the back.
The way these locks work,
Caveat to this is
they're modular. They're in the two sections. On the outside, exposed to the elements, is all the mechanical stuff. On the inside is the circuit board, the electronics, and the battery. Now, if you, for example, I had the same lock in my garage. It's not insulated or heated. Minus 35. I don't care what type of lock you have. I don't care how good the engineering is. No batteries are going to give you enough power to run the lock. It just won't work. But if you are in most of the applications, if it's a heated indoor interior and exterior outdoor part, that lock will work in any temperature I've seen in Canada.
Right. Okay.
Gary
cameo. Mystery user earlier on asked, could you please repeat about the credit check? You were talking about the credit check.
We totally segued away from this. So yeah, it's a super important tool, and contrary to popular belief, the credit score is not the most important part. More importantly is the information you collect on that credit score. You use it for confirming all these different variables or data points about your tenant to make sure they're in fact telling the truth. So you can confirm previous addresses with their Equifax credit score, previous employers. Does it match? So does that match out the information they filled out in the application about all this history?
Right.
You check how they've managed their money. Typically on the credit report, there's a bunch of different sections to check, but just to kind of keep this quick and clear, they have these 30, 60, and 90-day buckets. And if you see lots of tallies across these buckets, that meant if they have three tallies in the 30-day, they've let their bill elapse over 30 days or due over 30 days 3 times. Now, if that payment does not get paid after 30 days and it goes into the 60 to 90-day bucket, then they let the payment go, that overdue bill go for 2 months or 60 days. Of course, 9 days and plus is a really long time. And then eventually goes to collections. So if you're looking at their credit history, and Single Key Neighborly, they both provide this service, you'll see this information. If you see zeros across the board, that means they've never let their bills go into overdue. They're diligent at paying the bills on time. Likely you can expect the same thing for you for your rent. If you're seeing a history of 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s in the 30 and 60 and 90-day buckets, they're probably not very good at managing their money, and that's a problem. So the credit score, to me, it's a single snapshot in time. So it's not really indicative of how that tenant performs. If they've just gone through a divorce, job loss, or something like that, their credit score may get gone through the ringer and it's really low. But if they don't have any late payments across any of the products, well, then you might have a really good person to rent to that's just been in an unfortunate position. On top of that, too, you want to keep this information. I always say my plan for the worst and hope for the best. You want to cover all of your bases, and hopefully, you've done all your right due diligence. You're gonna have a very smooth selling tendency. But let's say something happens. Maybe, this tenant has a midlife crisis and they go off the rails and they start drinking, partying, smoking, damage your property, all that kind of stuff. And then they just kind of do a midnight move and they're gone. And now you've got $3,000 to $4,000 worth of damage and $2,000 to $3,000 of missed rent and all this kind of stuff. Well, when you bring in an eviction specialist, they're going to want to start asking about all this. They want to learn as much about this person so they can find them again. These credit score reports are phenomenal pieces of information. They have so much information and valuable that gives these guys the tools they need to go after this tenant and find them again for you. I've actually put this request out to Single Key. I know Neighborly used to have it on their credit score. I haven't used the reports in a little while, but they used to give you permission to run that credit score and pull credit actually more than once. It's not like a one-time thing. It's like open permission while they're your tenant, you can pull that credit score. So a bit of a pro tip here: if you've got this permission up front, you let your tenant who's done a midnight move 2 months ago or 6 months ago, and they owe you $6,000. Wait 6 months until life sales down. They think they've gotten away. Pull their credit again. You see their current work locations now up in Edmonton instead of Calgary. You know where to go after them to do collections.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So there's nuances to the trade. That's why, again, our community, we've got a couple of these eviction experts. They're so good at what they do. You can learn. It's just, if you're ever going through that process, you don't know what you're doing. Just here's the FYI. Typically, the eviction process will cost you 1 month's rent. So in the realm of $1,000 to $1,500. And you're thinking, oh man, if I just go and do my own eviction and book it and get it done, I can do it for, it's a $75 application fee, and I'll do my thing, and maybe I can get it done for a couple $100 and all that. Just, if you don't know what you're doing, because you have to be very clear on how you articulate in these hearings, and if you don't position and ask for what you need, you're gonna get thrown out to the wolves, so to speak. And sometimes, and actually not sometimes, I've seen it where, especially in RTDRS, the adjudicator or the arbitrator has gone back to a tenant and says, well, tenant, the landlord hasn't been very clear, the documentation isn't very clear. They're always going to default and sympathize with the tenant, not the landlord. And I've seen where someone's gone in, in conversations with them, they've had 6 different lease breaches. They could have this person kicked out. And the hearing, the results came back after, where the adjudicator sided with the tenant, gave the tenant an extended deadline to move out, asked them what they want for their own payment plan without really taking into account what the landlord wanted. So where I'm trying to say with this, if you've not been through this process, it's just so worth paying the $1,000 or paying whatever it is to have the professional do it. Pay attention and learn with them and ask lots of questions and watch them do your hearing. So then when hopefully next time you've learned your lesson, you do a little more due diligence.
You're never there again. Yeah.
Worst case, if you get a crazy tenant, which they definitely are out there, and you have to go through this process again, you now know what to do because you've seen a professional do it. And typically, when they build these cases, they have between 80 and 120 pages for your typical eviction in terms of evidence that they've built out. So if you're going in with a lease and a few pictures and a couple of emails, that is not enough.
Yeah. Well, evidence is everything. You made a lot of great points tonight, and I so badly want to go deeper into that with my own points, but it is past 6 o'clock, so another time on the hearing. But Donna, you had something you wanted to say, I believe.
Let's do another one on evictions. I think it'd be a great session, MacKenzie, if you're game to. Do you guys want that?
Yeah.
An eviction Monday main event?
I do.
Great. I just want to put this out, and I don't mean to step on any toes, but Derek Paymont is in our group, and he's
literally what I wrote down.
He's
just a phenom when it comes to this stuff.
I think he's watching too.
I should get him to connect then. We're always looking for good people like that. So absolutely have him reach out to me. And I guess I just want to, one thing if I can wrap up with, I hope this really
more, but go ahead.
Resonates with people. Okay, what is the best platform site to advertise today besides Rent? Okay. No Kijiji, please. Okay, so this is so dependent on the product you're renting out, the tenant demographic that you wanted to appeal to. Like, I know someone in their 20 university is going to look in different places than someone who's 45 and only knows about, say Kijiji or Rent Faster. So the easiest way and a sure fast test to figure out where you should be marketing is pretend you're a tenant, go on Google and do multiple different searches with slight different terminology. So let's just take, for example, a 3-bedroom house in Calgary. I'll search houses for rent in Calgary. I'll search home for rent YYC. I'll search house rentals Calgary, best, all these different search terms. And so you'll do this 5 or 6 times, and you're going to look at the top 3 to 5 results. And the websites that keep popping in the top consistently, and for your product type, for whether that's a condo, a townhouse, a bachelor apartment, or a full house, all these things will have different. They work better in different websites, especially up in Edmonton. Calgary, we're generally mostly dominated by Rent Faster, but I know up in Edmonton, you guys, if it's a really nice home, it should go on Rent Faster. If it's a 1 to 2 bedroom entry level product, it seems Rent Board and Facebook Marketplace seem to be really popular. So the short answer, depends.
That was a question from Alvin. And my addition to that would be, in my experience in Edmonton, at least, I like Facebook because I like to be able to see who's actually inquiring. Kijiji, you don't necessarily get the person's name, and then you try and look them up on Instagram or Facebook, and you can't figure out which one it is. So I want to be able to quickly do a character judgment, right off the bat to determine whether it's worth my energy. And then next, on top of that, we've had a ton of luck with Zumper. Zumper, I don't know. It's just, I've never heard of it before, but we get a lot of great applicants from Zumper. Same thing, you get their name, you're able to look them up, which is super powerful to be able to, Google them, Facebook, Instagram, to see what kind of a person they are, what kind of things they're following, gang symbols and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a quick segue, I'll add on to it. This tip just came up tonight. I just learned this like an hour ago, and I'm going to be incorporating into my systems. One of the awesome landlords in our group, she shared a great tip. I wish I could give her credit right now. It's eluding me. I think it was Rebecca Campbell. Okay, I don't see it, but ask for legal names on your application, because you'll generally get aliases and nicknames when people apply in properties. And on Facebook, when you're trying to search up on Facebook, if you look in the URL on your profile, if they haven't changed it, the Facebook default on the URL is actually to use their full legal name, and then I'll put a number at the end to get a unique. So if you wanted to share your link to your Facebook profile out, that's where you'd be looking. So because you can change your nickname, if they change their name multiple times in the Facebook profile, that's fine. That's what's just going to show up on the main screen. But when you go up to the website where it's www.facebook.com/profile/Jane Doe, that last part on the URL, you can change it and as an end user, but most people don't know about that. That typically uses their default legal name when they first create their account.
I love that. That's just an extra layer that you can always double check.
Another cameo. Hi.
Debbie asks, I've heard of landlords who give the tenants the application in advance before the viewing to fill out, screening to see if they are interested. Would you use this as well?
Yeah. So I have an easier version of that, right? So that's going back to where I've created a Google form with my core questions that aren't as intense as a full complete application, but it gives me a very good idea of who I'm dealing with. So yes, absolutely.
I'll save my opinion for another time. Not to say yours is wrong. I'm just saying, just for a matter of time.
I trust you, Wayne.
For me, just to say quickly, I'm all about just reducing friction, right? If I've got a really great tenant, I want to, like, if you remember renting, you want it done fast. You know what I mean? Like you responded to 20 people. Normally it's the first 3 people that respond to you. You go and set your viewings up, and if it's good, fantastic, done. I don't want to deal with this any longer than I need to. As soon as you've made a decision that you want to do something, just like you made a decision that you want to buy a new car, you think that you're going to wait it out and get the best price. But at the end of the day, you really just want that car and it to be done with. So it is a sales thing. For me, I want to reduce friction as much as possible to make it as easy as possible for them to get there. Hey, you want to see this in 45 minutes? Oh, yeah, that'd be amazing. Simple, fast, easy. And I'm a super cool guy. And that's what I'm going for. And then obviously, in the meantime, I'm making sure that I'm not skipping any due diligence. I still want to make sure that I'm making good decision, but I want this to be as seamless for the person as possible so that I can close them. Because if you wait 4 hours to respond to that person, you book them for Saturday, they're going to find somebody else. Somebody else is going to jump on them. And it's probably one of those landlords that are just like super cool and easy. Oh yeah, sure. Deposit. You can pay me over the next 4 months. No big deal. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to beat that person. Oh, wow. How many do you got, man?
Okay, I guess that's our signal. Would you say?
I'm gonna. You can say hi, Jack. That's yourself on TV. Don't click on anything. We need that still. So I'm still on the show. I don't need help right now, but you can sit beside me. Is that okay? Okay. I'm just gonna completely riff on that, and I should put this caveat. I love all those points, and I do agree, Wayne. It's very market dependent. If we're in a tenant's market, which we're kind of bounced right now, you want to remove that friction. If it's if you've got multiple offers, if you will, of tenants want to get into your property, put those roadblocks up and filter out the ones that are tire kickers. So, so one thing I have my big purpose I wanted to share with your group, if that's okay, about what I'm trying to accomplish with our community and hopefully make this a better profession for everyone being a landlord. If that's okay with you guys. Yeah,
absolutely. We got a couple more questions. You hop into it.
Okay, cool. So I've worked on this for some time, and I hope this really resonates with you guys. I'm going to read it out word for word. So this is my big person, my passion with our community. We bring together new, accidental, experienced landlords and property managers in the province of Alberta to navigate the inherent risks and challenges of renting out properties, remove the factor of luck, and overcome the apprehension of taking a financial loss by selecting a bad tenant. To build the best practices and habits as a result of hearing the stories, experiences, and ideas of people on the same path in an exclusive, collaborative, private community, so we all can attain financial certainty with lower risks and stress. Part 2. We believe by providing a community and an educational platform that the benefits will be twofold, mutually benefiting both the landlords and tenants by, number 1, more landlords will stay in the rental market longer, therefore providing a greater number of higher quality rentals for a longer duration, achieving financial certainty quicker. In turn, number 2, this will increase the supply of affordable rental housing, helping those Albertans that need it most. Hashtag win-win.
I like it.
So if that resonates with you guys, and that's why, again, Donna and Barry and Wayne, you're right in the thick of this, is you guys are very complimentary to what we're doing and cameo, and why we're thrilled to be partnering with you guys and kind of cross promoting our platforms, because you guys do a very similar thing on the legal real estate side of the business.
It's amazing, man.
Well, we certainly are focused on the win-win. So, great. Now, MacKenzie, if you have a few more minutes, we'll follow up with these last questions.
Okay. Yeah, just a couple left. Is it easy for a landlord to request credit score report from somebody? Where do you request it from?
Okay, good question. So yes, there's actually services that provide exactly that right now. The industry leaders out there would be Single Key and Neighborly. I don't know if I can mention this. We actually have exclusive discounts within our group. We get 20% off those services. Generally, they're a pay-per-use service, and a lot of them right now have the application part built into their service as well. So it's both an online application, plus then you get the credit score that comes from Equifax.
I have a question for you on that then.
Okay.
Is Single Key is offering you this discount?
And Neighborly, yeah, we've got 20% off with both of them. You bet.
So we have a number of people in our group that are not in Alberta.
So it's privy to anyone who joins our group. So here's a question back to them. Do they have rentals in Alberta?
Some don't. Many don't.
That's a good question, actually. That's a really good question.
Well,
Let
let's
me take
talk about maybe we can share specials with each other.
Sure, I would love that. Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Okay.
Let's have that conversation. And perfect.
We'll see what we can do for you guys.
I believe that was the last question. There's one more here. Someone asked, what kind of beard oil do you use?
Yeah, this is my work from home dress
That
code.
was my question, but
It's definitely it's grown out a bit since I haven't been able to go in the office for some time.
I think you had a beard when I met you. You had a beard.
I did my first acre event, and that's when you got me introduced to. I remember Brad Witherspoon. You took me across there, which was great. Yeah, that was April 2017. I realized maintaining a beard is like maintaining hair again, which I haven't had for a while. You got to style it and comb it and use beard wax, which is actually Mammoth. That's Mammoth beard is the one that I use for beard wax.
My next question would be, how do you feel about the barbershops opening back up again?
Mine's about 5 feet across in my bathroom. It's an electric razor. I have no problem. It's been open 24/7 the entire time.
Yeah. I like the beard. I like it.
Perfect.
MacKenzie, this is awesome, man. Thank you so much. 2 things I want to plug for you. Obviously, one is the Alberta Landlord Community. Very simple to find, those 3 words on Facebook. And you guys have an app as well, right?
We do. I don't know. Do we kind of hang off there? Maybe I know Don and I were talking about the best way to kind of collaborate together. Let's hold off on that part first. But yeah, if you guys want to find us, I've created a link directly to our group without even being on Facebook. If you go to albertalandlordgroup.ca, that will redirect to our Facebook group directly, where go ahead and approve it. And if you guys are going to join tonight, just mention you saw me on the show tonight. I've got a bunch of people that help me out. So that will make sure you get through our vetting process, because we are diligent. For example, in the last 28 days, about 35 to 40% of the people that applied don't get in our group, because we make sure we only have landlords.
Gotcha. One other thing that you mentioned earlier, Ron, that you have a tenant screening masterclass. Is that something that people can find if they want to learn more about that?
Yes. I just did my first round with my students. I'm revamping a lot of material based on the feedback and making it better. Perhaps Don and I can talk offline about how we can make that available for you guys.
All right.
Great.
Cool. Don?
Well, thanks so much, MacKenzie. Thanks for joining us, people. Remember, Barry's on Thursday at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. He's going to be having the Olivers, who are known as cash flow. Am I?
Hey, what's going on here?
I don't know what happened. I guess that's our signal that it's time to go.
We can hear you now. It was just kind of a little choppy there. We want to know, who are these Olivers?
The Olivers, cash flow queen, like 425, 450 rent-to-own deals that they've done. So we're going to start a series on rent-to-own. So stick around.
Yeah. Rent-to-own's pretty neat. Pretty neat.
It is pretty neat.
Okay, guys. There's echoes. That's what it was. You have an echo coming through. Echo.
I don't know why.
Oh, well. It's okay. We're all done.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. It was really my pleasure. I hope you guys, your members, found value, and I really appreciate the time with you guys tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, man.
Yeah, okay. Take care, everyone.